Hit it! That's what I'm talking about.
Wait!
Okay, now, from the beginning.
All right, thanks everyone for coming. This is the Best in Class Made with Unity panel. My name is Mike Wuetherick. I'm a producer with Made with Unity, and I have the pleasure of working with a lot of the best creators in the Unity community, and I'm super proud to have this group on stage here with me. So we'll let you guys introduce yourselves. Tell us who you are. Their names are kind of hidden behind you here. My slides didn't coordinate so well, but go from right to left.
So what's right to left?
That's you.
That's me. Hey. Okay, I'm Ulf Andersson. I think the most known game I've made is Payday 1 and 2. I'm now working on a game called GTFO with a new studio called 10 Chambers. And we're running Unity, obviously.
Which we're very happy about.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm too very happy about that. But yeah, I don't know how much detail I should. It's fine. Okay, all right. Move on.
Hi, my name's Jake Rodkin. I work at a studio called Campo Santo here in San Francisco. Our previous game was a game called Firewatch, and we're making a new game called In the Valley of Gods, both of which are in Unity. I don't know, should we even say what we do on these games? What
Sure.
information, right?
Sure.
I do level design, UI design, and game design, but I'm not a very hardcore 3D artist or programmer, so I'm sort of a miscellaneous glue person.
Perfect.
My name is Bennie, executive producer at Oddworld, and worked on New and Tasty, now Soulstorm. I think my mic's a little loud, but
Oh, you're great.
all right, perfect. And I do a little bit of everything. As an EP, normally I try to stay high level, but yesterday I was in the editing suite. You name it, it's like from one to the next. Technical, art, do it all. So
Perfect.
Rößl from Austria, from 5 Studios Interactive, and we're working on D.R.O.N.E, which is our debut title, so our first game that goes to the public. And I'm technical artist and game designer.
Cool, awesome, thank you. So I think to get started, let's talk about graphics and art style, because I think that's the one thing that stands out to me for all of your titles, is you're all creating extremely beautiful, just fantastic art, and in very different styles. So what attracts you about Unity, and or how do you approach coming up with a unique visual style for your games? So.
Well, I sort of, when I do things myself, I always gravitate towards Ridley Scott. That's my source.
It's a good default.
Yeah, it is. That's my default setting, right? So this game is really about trying to go all the way with volumetric lighting and stuff like that, but also really high contrast colors and so forth. So it's really what I like to do, and it's the same with my team. Everybody's jacked on that sort of thing.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
Jake?
Both on Firewatch and in the Valley of Gods, they are both driven by the art directors on our team, which sounds stupid and obvious, but we try really hard to make our games feel as close as we can to the paintings that they produce. And with Unity, we've found, this is going to accidentally sound negative, but it is not meant negative, that just you can very easily start with a blank slate in Unity, by which I mean there's not a hugely imposed look just out of the default settings, and at least as far as my experience has gone. And we've found it very easy to take the work that our concept artists and our art directors are doing and pull from all of the possibility space of Unity, both in what comes in Unity and in the asset store, sort of starting things that we can kit bash together. These 4 specific tech choices will get us a thing that feels very close to just the colors and atmosphere of this piece of art. And I've found that very easy and satisfying. On both games, we've been really shocked by how quickly we can get a really crappy thing up and running that looks kind of like the art that we're trying to hit.
Awesome. Barry?
yeah, mine, I would say I really geek out on the technical aspects of pipelines and whatnot. As a previous rendering TD, those deferred rendering, physically based materials, all those buzzwords mean a lot to me. But in practice, I think using Unity, and for my team and Lauren Lanning, which is our creative director, all of that stuff just disappears with Unity. We're never really talking tech so much because it falls away under the hood, and it's more of what can you do? And it's really whatever you want to do. It's when you put materials on objects and you've already set up your scene properly, everything just shows off as it should. More like, I remember in the past, we used to, fake a lot of things and set up a ton of lights and try and really simulate what the real world would look like in our universe. But all of that is gone except for like optimizations. It's really, a director can sit down and just create his vision, and the tool responds like it would if you were building a feature or you were building something that wasn't even a game, but was more of a cinematic quality in nature. And when I look at each frame now that we produce, Lauren's aesthetic for atmosphere and lighting, it's very moody, and it really pushes kind of, I think, what most engines could do today. But Unity just seems to handle it in stride. We don't really have any challenges artistically, right? We're always looking at how can we make the frame rate faster and things like that.
Cool. And Peter?
Well, we're going for something like fantastic realism, I guess. And we have a big challenge because all of our arenas or levels are user-made. And so we cannot bake using Enlighten, which would be cool. But we need to come up with our own solution, and here the extensibility of Unity really helps us a lot because we can modify things very easily, and we can prototype very easily and test if it works, if an idea is going to work, and that's really the big plus for us. And yeah, not only the arenas are user-made, also the drone's going to be user-made, which is still in prototyping, but it's looking good, and Unity really allows us to do all that. So the users can create, and we have like a meta level. Users put their vision into the game, and yeah, we have like a game engine in a game engine. So
yeah, I know. You were just showing
cool.
me. They've got the game in the side room over here. It looks fantastic, and the level editing and everything. It's just
maybe
it's so cool.
Somebody wants to see.
Yeah, if you want to
later.
check it out afterwards, it's running live on one of the machines. It's super cool. It's crazy. Which I guess comes back to the next question, which is often you're creating some of the best looking games, but that means your team is obviously huge because you need all these people to build all this stuff. But I think it's the exact opposite for all of you. So let's talk team size, and how do you approach that? Like, does that change? Like, especially you're coming from like the big studio model, and now you're kind of doing the new approach.
Yeah.
So how does team size affect?
Actually, when starting at studio, you start small, right?
Yeah.
And it's all fun and games, basically. Actually.
Literally.
Pun intended. But then you slowly grow and expand, and we could add, this guy, just this guy, and then just this guy turns into, 200 more guys in several offices. And for every studio I start, I always try to sort of set up limits for the team size. And this one is just, we named it 10 chambers. So we can't pass 10. It's in the contracts. Like, I quit as soon as we pass 10.
Bump off someone else?
Basically. So yeah, but I used to run my own tech for like, was it 14 years or something, or 12. And having that load of all the engineers, and that's a big chunk, but it's also in how you have to, if you want to add features and sort of, when you start making a game, you have to develop the actual engine in parallel to the game, which is crazy, right?
Yeah.
Because you're designing something and you're building the caterpillar and the house at the same time, which is weird. And this, Unity just allows us to start off with that blank slate, and then we can build tool sets on top of that. I think that's one of the more the strength with Unity. I think it's just how it's super easy to expand on the engine. Basically.
So how big is your team right now?
We're actually 8 right now. Cool. So
you're almost at the 10.
Soon enough, somebody's gonna get bumped. But yeah,
cool.
yeah.
We made Firewatch with, I think, 10 people, but we, on the new game, have added 2 additional chambers to our team. We're a 12-person team making this game, and Firewatch is probably an easier example to talk about Unity and our team size, because we started off with, I think 6 or 7 people total, and we, by I came from Telltale Games before I worked before I started Campo Santo. I was a creative director on the Walking Dead games there, and that was the team size was very big by comparison to anything I'd ever worked on, which was like 70 people, which is still nothing compared to the huge teams that exist. But being able to go to Unity and have many of the things that I considered the luxuries of having a core tech department available just out of the box were great, and it meant that we were able to do a lot of work early on Firewatch without a super senior tech lead. We eventually needed one early on, but being able to do art style prototyping, do mechanics prototyping, and also, I mean, honestly, for a small team size, being able to look at what we perceived Unity as good at and what we perceived Unity as sort of valuable to relative to our skills helped us kind of define the box that we were able to consider, like we can only fit this much game in because we have these people on our team, we have Unity, and we kind of want it to look and feel like this, and that let us say, okay, these features we can cut because we're not going to write them and they're not in Unity, and and these things that we're good at and that Unity is really like speaking to us with, we can double down on those parts of the game like that. At least for a small team, that was really helpful.
Helps focus the vision.
Yeah, on our new game, we're ambitious idiots and we're kicking walls out all over the place, and it's taking a long time, but it's going to be pretty sweet.
So I think we win so far for being the smallest internal team. It's really just Lauren and I, Lauren on the creative side, and then myself, producing and technically just bringing those skills to bear. But it's crazy. It's for TD. When Lauren dreams up ideas, concepts, they're so vast and they're so broad, your heart and your soul just leaps out of your body because you go, there's no way we can do those things. But before, it's just impossible on any console, any platform. It just shouldn't be possible at all for us to hit those levels of quality, to hit his vision the way that he sees it. But fortunately, around the world, the industry's grown. And so we have resources from Canada and from the UK and from the US, and we really look at a pool of individuals and we go, who's the most passionate and talented, right? And really wants to build our characters, right? We have a phenomenal engineering team, and that never hurts, right? For any engine anywhere to have a world-class engineering team, but we sourced our entire engineering team external as well, and our entire art production team is done external. And so internal, we're a very small, tight hub, where Lauren will just say, I want to do 1 million things today. And I go, okay, well, we'll figure it out. And the team, I'm very proud of everyone, but it really starts with Unity because we're all connected through that one hub, and with it, we've been able to achieve his vision to the point where recently I think it was for me as a producer, I love hearing these things, but Lauren said, I've never produced CG to this quality before in my career, right? And that dates back to Rhythm and Hues and all the work he's done. And for an engine to be capable of those things, and for our team to be able to add what we want into it, and add our own flavor and our own special sauce, it's pretty impressive that we're able to achieve so much.
That's awesome.
Well, we are 5 in our studio, and many people think that's not enough. But it is. We are generalists, and knowing what the other person needs really helps. I think we work 10 times faster than many other bigger productions, and really knowing what the other one needs is the key. And our texture artist, for example, does modeling, and our modeling artist does texturing, and everybody in the team has ideas and brings them to the table, and usually the conversations within our team are like, no, that's not possible. And then somebody says, maybe if we do this, or maybe if we do that. And suddenly things become possible. And we are really, really happy that with a tool set like Unity, we can realize a vision with just a small team. And it's actually a quite big vision, I would say.
That's awesome. You guys are a particularly interesting case because you actually met by being asset store developers.
Yeah, we were asset store developers, and we never worked in a big studio, none of us, I think. And yeah, we're just looking, playing around, and then we contacted each other, and yeah, everybody liked the ideas of the other one and the personalities, and so we formed the team. It didn't take long, and we're still together after like 3 years and going strong.
That's awesome. So is there anything that you can recommend to developers starting out, like as you start building out or trying out these big ideas? Like Jake, you mentioned like figuring out what the constraints are and then try to work within them, or like whatever it is. Like obviously now you're kicking out the walls, so is there anything in particular that any of you could recommend to developers that are, I think a lot of people are in the same, very or similar boats where you have a small team and you have a big idea. How do you marry those two concepts?
I think, first of all, we always did white boxing. Now it's more like asset store boxing. So you try to capture and create something very, very quickly with the asset store, I'd say. And then you do additional content yourself just to hone it in. But like, there's so many things that needs to be done for that complete vision of a game. And the asset store helped us a lot with that. Yeah, that's my recommendation. It's just go in there and dig out the good stuff.
I totally second that. The very first version of Firewatch that we built was built using the ultimate FPS controller from the asset store with the generic things. So instead of the game, usually you have a walkie-talkie, but you press a button and just a pistol would come up. And you're walking around in just this like a medieval town, and the only dialogue you can say is audio we ripped from The Room, the movie. But it was enough to be able to walk up to things and go, oh, hi, Mark. Oh, hi, doggy, to like things in the world. Like, okay, I guess this sort of are like basic controls of that we think is going to be the center of the game worked with that. And I mean, it's really funny and garbage, but just like that was literally, we built our desk when we moved into our office. And then like the second day in our office, someone had that entire thing up and running. And we're like, okay, great. We can actually just, well, we can't literally build off this. We have to throw this in the garbage right now. But like conceptually, it's very easy to, I find prototyping stuff really, really easy and fun in Unity.
Cool.
Yeah, I'd say we always start with just stay calm, right? The world's not going to end today, may end tomorrow, but today we just need to gather all the information. And so on our team, we have just an interesting story. We have one technical artist. And when we recently started doing some cinematic work, we told him, okay, you're a technical artist that handles a lot of our scripting and other things, but I need you to work on cloth today, right? We need cloth, visual effects, fire, smoke, a million different things. And he's like, well, I haven't really done cloth before. I said, that's fine. You'll figure it out tomorrow, and you'll be a pro by the next day. And sure enough, in each case, right, Unity's been flexible enough for us to be able to do those things. So all of our prototyping is very rapid iteration. And that's I think in order to create a AAA product, right, best-in-class product, you have to be able to iterate extremely fast. And Unity just has allowed us to do that exceptionally well.
Cool.
Yeah, well, my advice for newcomers or people that start out with Unity would be to start small, do 1 or 3 projects, and then maybe tackle something bigger. But generally, the idea for the game should be considering the limitations that you have with a small team. For example, if you can do user-generated content, go for that. And also maybe if you form a team, you can find a lot of people in the community. And many are looking for partners and people to produce something bigger. Just be careful that people are not like too crazy with their ideas and they are realistic. But I think most people spend some thought on it. And yeah, so just hear the others out and look what you can do.
It's awesome.
There's also something to be said about the sort of clean slate development. So you start working with the engine, you can basically use the parts you want to use and the rest don't cost anything, and you don't have to struggle sort of uphill against a predefined engine that, oh, this is an FPS engine or an RTS engine or whatever that is. It's not a mobile engine, it's not a console engine, it's everything. So you can sort of shape it to exactly the thing you want to do,
right,
instead of like having to rip out tons of code before you get to the roots of that, So that's
awesome.
That's a big thing.
So we kind of covered my next point, but it's like, why did you choose Unity originally? Like, was there a particular thing? I know you, Peter, you mentioned you were creating stuff for the asset store, but everyone kind of discovered it at the very beginning. Like, what was your first impetus or reason for trying out Unity?
For me, it was just sitting down, trying to rehabilitate myself into finding the passion again after working on these, big projects and just having crunched way too many years. And so just doing stuff yourself is super easy, right? And I'm an artist, programmer, game designer, and so I could do everything myself, and that sort of set the basis for it. I love that style of development. My dream is to make my own, like completely alone. One day I'll do it when I'm 60 or something. Yeah. So that sort of got me started into Unity.
For us, I was going to say that it was familiarity, but then I realized that actually when we started our studio, I don't think anyone on our team had shipped a Unity game before, but it had enough things in common with it that everyone was able to pick it up very quickly. I mean, just to what you said about it being a blank slate was a very big deal. And also our team, when we started on Firewatch, we had a gameplay programmer, a 3D artist, a writer, a UI designer, who's me, and a composer / generalist, and we did not have a lot of low-level tech investments. So being able to look at, especially like we started in the Unity 4 days, which was before the standard shader and the physically based rendering stuff was in there. Being able to just go in the asset store and say, oh look, someone has made a really nice lighting model for us, which was Marmoset Sky Shop. We can literally just buy this for next to nothing, and then have, our game can render completely differently. And then later on, you can replace that or develop it or hire a person who's smarter than you to tell you why why it needs to change or whatever. But just, we were really excited about Unity mostly for being able to get off the ground with it very quickly with a small team with an idea.
Awesome.
I think for New and Tasty, we went with it because it was a product that allowed us to go wide. We have a lot of legacy IP that we wanted to find a home for and figure out how to easily convert them to as many platforms that we could possibly be on as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And so looking at the landscape at the time, it was, Unity was kind of new out of the box for us, and it was a good opportunity for us to say, well, we can go to mobile easy, right? We can go to console easy, right? And we can take these legacy IPs and remake them economically and be able to distribute that to all the countries around the world and different languages, and it was just a very scalable option. And then it became, now that we've achieved that, like, how do we go back to our roots of like feature film and up the quality bar to the point where when you're looking at it, it always looks like you're looking at a movie. And so that was kind of the linear progression for us in the thought process. Cool.
I'm not sure when exactly Unity came to PC, so you could develop on PC. That was the point when I started out, and I was like
that's Unity
3D
2 or something.
Yeah,
or
2.6, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. And I was a 3D artist back then. I could not program or script anything. And so I was forced to use Unity because the programmer decided, we're going to use Unity, and it is very easy. And now I'm very happy that this happened because now I learned scripting myself and are more like a technical artist. And I really know why it's the best choice. It's
cool.
just so easy.
So we had our keynote yesterday, and I'm sure you've been following some of the new developments. Is there anything on the roadmap that's particularly interesting or sort of helping to drive that passion?
I think for our team, that sort of goes up, towards what he was saying. We have our sound designer is our level designer now, and our economics guy is programming too. So it's just a big mess of like multiple hats to juggle if you juggle
small
hats.
Team always does, yeah.
You know how to juggle hats, right? I think the visual scripting stuff would be very interesting. Not only for us, but I see it for sort of coming in as an artist, just having that gateway, because I love C#, and I wouldn't use much of the visual scripting myself, maybe for like AI structures or maybe like level progression stuff, or like specific level design scripting things. But it would really opened the engine up a lot for, for artists, basically.
Like the new shader graph as well, same thing.
Absolutely,
custom
yeah.
materials.
I'm a GPU programmer also, so I despise shader graphs. I really do. I can use them myself, but like, I'll hide that from my team.
Just gonna write the
They'll
shaders.
find it.
Yeah, they will, sadly, and I'll have to work that out, yeah.
Cool.
I mean, we haven't. I'm not a technical enough person to get excited about this, but everyone on my team is very excited about Scriptable render pipeline and all of the other offshoots that are coming from that. So I'll just say that on behalf of everyone in the office who, whenever we talk about any new rendering feature, they're like, we'll just table this for another month until Scriptable render pipeline shows up.
Right.
So, that's the one.
I've been playing with it for the last couple months, and I can say it is pretty cool. Our graphics engineer is extremely happy, so it's cool.
I'd have to second that. It's on my team, it's the exact same thing. It's Scriptable render pipeline, and maybe a close second would be GPU-based particle instancing would be the two big ones. But I hear from my technical art team and my art team all day, every day, when is the Scriptable render pipeline coming? Because we want to optimize these things, and we want to do these, we want to hit this frame rate, blah, blah, blah. And it's amazing, that they're always educating me on this stuff. They're like, this is a new thing, call Unity, right? We want to know when we can get it. So they're really excited.
Well, the answer is now in the beta.
Now, yeah, I'll take it.
Well, I think for us the biggest surprise was now that IL2 CPP is available for PC desktop. We were testing it, and we had speed ups on some scripts of 15 times. So we're really excited about that.
That's cool.
Yeah, so looping every iteration becomes very quick. And
So you're saying it's up to 15 times faster? Is
in some
title card on this,
yes.
on this
So
panel?
it between 1.5 times faster to 15 times faster.
That's great.
That's a nice checkbox that
Yeah.
you gotta hit. Cool. So I'm gonna make you the CEO of Unity for a day. What should we do? What would you see the 800 engineers that is at Unity?
First of all,
They're working on your project. What are we gonna do?
I've run big companies, so I would quit. That's my first move.
Fire yourself?
Yeah, so what would that be? There's so many things for my game, I would focus a lot on the streaming part, I think. Streaming is something that could be better, and it's moving, but there's a lot of stuff that you can do that will enable a lot of artists to sort of get past the optimization, the memory optimization, and just increase, the detail and everything, and just do that. So I think that would be.
Everyone wants bigger levels and bigger
Yeah, I
res
mean
content.
but it's also workflow-wise, because you don't need to think about the whole picture as much. You can chunk it up and sort of do your thing. Yeah.
Cool.
I would also like that. If I was the CEO of Unity for a day and I had, what did you say, 800 engineers at my beck and call?
I'm sorry for you, man. It's
No, okay. I think I have a wish list item. My CEO decree would require one engineer and would require the other 799 to not give a reason for why this shouldn't happen. And it is the lock icon in the top, in the inspector. You can't tell if it's locked or not because it's like a 1 pixel difference. So I would have someone set it up so that when it's locked, the icon inverts, and that's it. Just push it out, put it in a build. It's easy. You might have to add like 1 extra pixel to the edge because the lock icon, I've looked at it, is very tight. It's a tight PNG
it's not much
file.
space there.
But you can fit the extra pixel. I know it because I made a mock-up of it and I made myself really mad. So that's,
Where'd Mark
as a CEO,
go?
I would literally upload. Oh yeah, I would upload that PSD file to the Unity Slack and say, I'm the CEO. Please just check in these 2 PNG files. Thank you. And then someone would be like, it doesn't work with the light theme, and I'd be like, just fucking do it. Just do it. So that's
That's awesome.
that's mine.
Well, I'm fortunate in that I don't really have to get my hands dirty too much. I can
Sorry to
stay
swear.
high level
Sorry.
and make sure everybody else is doing those things. But this comes from my art director at Frema. He said if there's any way we can speed up the light bake time, he would be forever grateful.
Did you see the GPU light mapping yesterday?
I did, yeah.
That's a pretty cool improvement.
Yeah.
Being able to offload all these things to the GPU, and it's pretty, it's amazing.
Well, I would maintain the direction that Unity is heading. I really like that Unity is now embracing more the graphical demanding stuff. So AAA looks, and that I personally was missing in the past few years, but this is really now the direction is really good, and please keep more of that.
Awesome, awesome. Well, let's see, how much time we got left? Let's open it up to questions. We've got a mic around somewhere. No mics. All right, you're gonna have to come up here. All right, stand up and shout your question, and I'll repeat it.
Well, it's only partially a question. Jay, were you responsible? Okay, that's really bad.
Good.
Responsible for the great contributions from Santo Campo of October, all the great stuff from the great boxing.
Oh yeah, I did most of the level design on Firewatch, so I put that stuff on the internet.
That was so beautiful. That was like the best contribution of October.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. That was the best possible question that could have been asked.
All right. Anyone else want to compliment everyone? No, we got questions. Anyone from the audience? Come on, there's got to be questions. What goes wrong? Yeah, postmortems. What went wrong?
I would say if you think a system is good enough and you have to focus on the next system, maybe think twice and look again, because maybe later it becomes harder to change.
Yeah, I would. Everything goes wrong all the time.
Yeah.
So you got to learn how to sort of roll with the punches and just iterate. Just crawl back onto the candy mountain, basically, because that's what it is. We make games, so it's all fun. It's all actually fun. We're sort of spoiled, right? It's not real problems, So just everything goes wrong. Yeah, basically.
If you're, I would say for us, at least on Firewatch, which was our first game as a team, the moment you know the platforms that you could even possibly be putting your game out on, do whatever you possibly can to start building your game on those as early as possible. Because there are things that will work surprisingly well on something like a game console that you didn't expect to, and then there are things that won't, and there are things that will shockingly be weird on even a high-performance PC that aren't on like the ones you have in your office. And like that's such dumb, obvious advice, I guess, but it took us a lot longer than it should have to just like, we knew we were coming out on the PlayStation 4, we knew we were coming out on the Macintosh, we knew we were coming out on PCs which have a billion possible system specs, and we were a very like hardware monoculture when we started our studio, and we didn't do any of that stuff for quite a while, and then went, it's gonna take a second to make all of this like actually good.
Especially with PC, I guess mobile's no better. You guys have 1,000 devices you have to test your games on, and so.
They have notches in the screen now.
Yeah, not just why. Yeah.
I would say as a general rule, right? If you have a critical demo that is key to your business, don't make the build the day before the demo, right? And it's not fully tested, because you'll end up in ER, and as the producer being responsible for all those things. We're always, it's generally complete chaos, even though it may seem controlled. All of these pieces are always moving, and you're juggling, constantly to stay on target, on time, but then something always happens. You have this build that's 20 minutes long, and you're playing through, and you're like, this is great. And then as soon as you show the client, the first thing you see is a pink billboard right at the very beginning, and you're just like, but those are things easy to recover from. But I would say those are, just always constantly test before you show anything.
I have a little addition to that.
Sure.
You mentioned, I think that's Murphy's Law, right?
Yeah.
But also to consider is, I think it's called Hofstadter's Law, which means everything takes twice as long, even if you consider Hofstadter's law. So it's recursion. It always takes longer than you expect, and plan for that.
Yeah, test on device, make a list, start knocking them down, and plan twice as long.
Yes.
Any other questions for anyone? Sure.
It seems like all of you can write your own ticket. Most of you worked in big companies and on AAA titles, but you've chosen to be independent. And I wonder, what is the quality of being an independent that you like the most? I mean, what delights you or surprises you about being an independent that keeps you there?
So the question is, why did you choose to be independent? Yes. And what keeps you there? I have to repeat it for the feed. I have to repeat it for the feed.
Okay. For some people, of course, it's not a choice. I mean, there's no business, right? But why do you move if you're in like a AAA situation? Why do you move back? And I think it's just when you start out, it's just that small team, and it's so passionate, and you can have a meeting with all the personnel like in the group, and it just becomes this passionate sort of project. And after a while, you have meetings about having meetings about problems with people in another meeting you were having. That's when you're sort of, what am I doing now? So yeah, just having control, creative control over things. And I think there's a lot of publishers also who realize this and sort of are capitalizing on the fact that signing and owning everything from a developer is not smart, like, you know, and that sort of talks to that, right? Just being in control of your own destiny, and you have nobody to blame. It's just your fault, right? Which is nice, but there's also negative sides that I've noticed. Not having deadlines is one of them. Like not having that. Like, you're not going to get paid. That's a big thing. And of course, economy plays into it. But you can sort of, let's just up the quality over here, and sort of, you don't see all the like, what actually matters because you're so close to the ground. I used to hate publishers, really. And I'm like a bastard to work with in a third-party situation, because I'd be all cocky and like, you know, I know the best and just do, it's my way or the highway, you know. It's a way to protect the team, of course, but having somebody else to check your stuff and actually say, you know, it has to be done till Friday is super important. And I think it's actually harder for me now than maybe for guys like you, because that's what you've been doing from the start. So, I mean, I'm just a spoiled brat of having the deadlines, I guess. Yeah.
Cool.
If I answered your question, it's a long rant.
I'll say on my end, I think it's it's an educational arc on your learns and the information you gather. I think it's good to work in both, starting with, you know, having that big studio experience where you can specialize in a thing or maybe in a few things and really hone your skills and hopefully make most of your mistakes on someone else's dime until you come full circle and then realize, well, now I have this skill set, right? I've been there, done that. And so now I feel real comfortable leading a team of X number of people that I'm investing in, because I at least know that my calls won't ever be 100% right, but I'll be at least in the ballpark of what needs to be done. And that saves a lot of headaches and a lot of empty bank accounts, so it's not so bad. But I enjoy small development after spending a lot of time in bigger studios, because I get to wear almost every hat. Like, my title is almost irrelevant at the studio. We don't really talk about my position as an EP. It's like, well, we need somebody in the editing bay today. Well, that's going to be me. We need somebody to look at lighting. Well, that may be Lauren or myself. There's something wrong with rigging, and there's too many joints, and we have performance issues, right? Well, let me sit down and look at your profile and try and work with you on those things. And so I enjoy, because I was able to go wide in big studios, I enjoy in a small dev environment that I can go deep on each issue and really kind of internalize and help spread that knowledge to the team.
Cool.
Well,
Oh,
I was
go
sorry,
ahead.
I
Nope.
was not in a AAA studio before, but about doing your own thing, you can have an idea, and if the idea pushes you, it's really great, especially if you get a team and you share the responsibility, and it's freedom, and freedom is really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the speed at which you can get your team on, to get creative consensus and to get momentum on your team is the thing that I like the most. I mean, my favorite size of a team that I'm working with is one that I can see in a sweep with my eyes without having to move. And whether that's a screen full of webcams from a bunch of remote people, if they get so small that you can't see them, it's probably a bad sign. Or if you look up at your desk and you can't actually see and identify your
Buy a
entire
bigger
team,
screen.
by just 3 8K displays for
Sold.
2 outsourcing
Done.
studios. So I mean, when I was at Telltale and it was a huge team, there was a really fun thrill of being in a room with 20 cinematic artists and everyone getting excited about each person's contribution to this huge game. But on a small team, you can have a really similar feeling, except that it's across every single discipline and not just the one for the department that you're in. And I think that trade-off for me has been worth it. Has been just and you can have small teams inside of big companies too, but it has to be a very particular situation for that to work out.
And I don't know if I would assume it's similar with all of us up here, but you have to be cut from a certain type of cloth to want to do this, because it never gets easier, right? It only gets harder, and the difference is, and you have to love that challenge. But for us, it's small team development. We bet everything on red, and we spin the wheel, right? And hope that when the product gets out there, that people love it, that they invest in the brand, that they want to come back as repeat customers. But with a big team, you can kind of sit back and go, well, the product shipped, and whatever it does, and it doesn't really necessarily affect me, right? Or even the company to some degree. But in small development, you're either making a hit, right? Or you could be gone tomorrow. So the drive is always if it's a 15-hour workday, right? It's a 15-hour workday. It's whatever it takes to get across the finish line and produce something that hopefully, when people look at it, guys like us can sit on this panel and say, it looks like best in class because the entire team has given everything to it. So.
Yeah, and 15-hour work days can be a lot of fun, actually.
They can, when it's going well.
Yeah. The passion has to be there.
It does.
I hate them unilaterally, but fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I don't think that it's exclusively about a person's passion or something, because I think there are people in that room of 20 cinematic artists for whom their ideal career is being a person in that room and just working day in and day out to be the best at that one thing they've chosen. And I think that is often a sort of culture shock breaking point when people for whom that is the thing that they value in their profession then go and end up on a small team and go, oh God, okay, I have to actually do 20 things that I'm not interested in or I'm not good at, and that doesn't mean that person is not necessarily passionate or that they're bad at their job, but it's a very different fit. Wearing one immaculately made hat that is the best hat, or having to wear 20 hats that some of them are kind of dumpy, is a different set of desires, Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, Kat.
Can you speak to what put you on the path to be a game maker?
So what started your career? What made you a game maker?
For me, it's a game called Oddworld, old Amiga game. I played it back to back, and then I hit, the credit screen, and it's one guy, and a musician also on top of that. But this one guy, he made the tools and the art and everything, right? So I was like, oh, that's possible, because I don't know anybody who wants to make stuff. So I wanted to make stuff already, right? I was a creative sort of youth, but I didn't know it was possible to do it. I just saw this list of people. I'm like, I can never, how do you even, how does a phone work at that point, right? So when I saw that, I'm like, hell, I'll do that, So I just started to consume everything I could, pick apart every game and just started to hack memory and try to figure out if I pull this thing, what happens over here, and just learn everything, So that's basically it for me.
Well, for me, I was drawing a lot in the school, and I always wanted my drawings to move, and so I was little, like the weird kid in the class that made noises when he drew. So, but yeah, so then I had an Amiga, and there was like a sprite animation program, and I loved that, and I made maps with Duke Nukem 3D back in the days. But I never thought it would be a profession. I didn't believe that, even though I wanted it. And so I learned piano maker and had like a bunch of different jobs until I thought, yeah, let's try it. And Unity was there, and it was easy enough to get something going. And now we're trying to make it bigger. And it's fun, and I love it. I love the decision that I took the risk to make games.
Barry?
For me, I started programming on my Apple IIe, and I wanted to make a flight simulator, and there were no graphics. It was just text-based, like each line, yes, no, and that's really what started me. But it was luckily a funny story. My dad and I share the same name, and I was at UCLA at the time, and there was a program called 3D Studio and AutoCAD. And they had it at an educational discount for $1,000, which was massive amounts of money for my dad at the time. But luckily, we had the same credit card that he gave me for college. And so, what's the worst that could happen if I just took this card and bought it? And I timed it out so I knew that you could return software back then. And I knew that after 30 days, he couldn't return it. So I purchased it exactly at the right time and then locked myself in a room and just learned every aspect of 3D Studio and DOS that I could until the point where I knew the reckoning was coming. And then it was too late. He said, wait a minute, I spent all this money to send you to UCLA so you could play video games? Like, that was the last thing on earth my dad ever wanted me to do. But he saw that I was passionate about it, right? And while there was nothing in college at the time that was geared towards what I was interested in, he could see that at least there was something there in me that every night, like, he would go, you're still on that computer, you're just waking up? And I didn't sleep. Like, I just stayed up through the night and into the next morning because I was so fascinated by all the things I could do and just watch every line render one at a time, right? I haven't seen that in a long time with real-time graphics, but it was like I would analyze every single line that would come up on my little screen. And that was nirvana for me, and I knew that whether it was games or film and television, I knew I wanted to be in CG, and I wanted to create realistic worlds, and I wanted to, program things, and that was kind of my origin.
All right, Jake?
I had not ever thought that I would be in games, although in the back of my mind, maybe thought it would be cool, but I was a sort of hobbyist writer about video games online for years and years and years, and I ended up meeting the people at Telltale Games right when they were starting the company. They then needed a forum moderator and community manager, and I applied for that job, but I put a couple websites I had made into a portfolio along with my interview, so I ended up sort of getting also put into making websites, which then I realized I could sort of worm into doing user interface art elements, which then ended up meaning that I was in game design meetings with game designers. And then I ended up, because Telltale ships monthly episodes, it's very easy to end up getting on a very small chunk of a game there. And that slowly sort of worked my way up. But the reason that I was interested in being at a game studio at all, even if I wasn't sure that people would ever actually let me make games, is I like that game teams are these multidisciplinary, collaborative groups. And it's now teams sort of split apart and reform in a way that they didn't used to. But the thing that was appealing to me at the time was that you could sort of find this group of people who did all sorts of things different than you, and you'd be working with them and collaborating with them from project to project to project as like a combination of a company and a creative group. And I thought that was really cool. And then I was fortunate enough to end up getting to actually make games there and not just delete forum posts, but even that would have been fine.
Awesome. All right, we got time for a couple, maybe one or two more. Go ahead. as an indie? How do you get people to know about your game?
We're learning.
We were talking about that
as we
earlier.
go. So
Think about how you're going to market the game from the moment you think about what the game is, even though that might make you feel like a dirty person. You just have to. You just have to. Like, whatever, right? I mean, like, how you're going to tell the... I mean, if it makes you feel better about it, which it should, because it's actually what it is, like, how can I tell people who don't know anything about this game what is exciting to me about this game, what's interesting about it? How can I sort of download what excites me about my game from my brain into their game in as concise a package as possible? Like, you've done your job the best in marketing a game if a person who hasn't played it has a picture in their brain of what the game is like that will actually map to what playing the game is like, and they're excited about that. And like, I didn't explain how to do it just now. I just said you had to do it, so that's useless advice. But it's super hard. But like, step one, I think, is just thinking about how do I. It's like it's a design problem. You know, how do I actually communicate this stuff? Like, is the idea that I have for my game one that I even can communicate to someone else? And the answer being no doesn't mean don't make the game, but it also means like keeping the back of your mind that the odds that someone is just going to miraculously understand the genius of my idea is probably lower if I can't explain it to anyone. But still make it.
yeah, it's also a little bit like the chicken and the egg situation. So you don't have a prototype, you can't show it, and you cannot really market without. So what do you do first? Start marketing what's not existent?
Don't
or-
start marketing first.
So, well, we've just decided our idea is cool enough, so we started,
Yeah.
and then when we had a working prototype, then we started to show it.
Yeah.
And if you really believe in your idea, and you have the guts to tackle it, and you have the skills to do it, you'll find probably people that like it, and then you start small, and this guy tells the next one, and it's like a snowball. And yeah, you need to have like faith also.
Yeah, just like what's a moment in your game, like a visual moment that crystallizes what it feels like, or what's 3 or 4 beats of gameplay that you noticed that is a story that you could tell a friend that makes them excited and makes them think about all the rest of the systems that you haven't even built yet. You know,
Yeah.
like you don't have to make those up from nothing first, but even just as you're playing early versions of your game, like keep in your mind, are those moments appearing? And if so, like just write them down somewhere so
Yeah.
that if you eventually
Yeah.
do a trailer, you're like, oh fuck, it's ours. God, jeez, I'm the worst. Jesus. Yeah, you know, the worst thing is to get your game all the way done and then be like, how do I sell it to someone?
And I think just, just piggybacking on what they said, it's everybody's case is different, right? And no one model works for all of us, but for us, it's very much like cutting through the noise. There's so much noise out there, and so I look at a product like any, ours in particular, and I say, what's special about it, right? Why this? Why would people want to buy this product, right? And I just, in simple sound bites, like in a marketing 101, I just try and list out those points and I go, well, this feature is meaningful. This adds impact. And ultimately, we try to make decisions not just on what we like, but what we believe will sell more units. And so those are part of the thought process as we go into it. But for, grassroots marketing, a lot of what Oddworld does is, we are non-traditional in a large AAA studio model where if you have a $1 million budget, you maybe have a comparable marketing budget, right, to push the product out and to get it as widely distributed as possible. We depend on the generosity of others, and so we really befriend the communities out there. We do our homework with Twitch streamers and YouTube, and we try to figure out what motivates them, right, to want to promote us, because the model of paying for, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of marketing is just not our model that we exist on. So, we really spend a lot of time to communicate with those communities. We go out of our way to build tools in the product to make it easier for their users to be able to engage in the product, and that goes a long way. And we even try to do some cameos here and there for people that are super fans, hardcore fans of the product, to say, would you like to be part of our product? And they, so those are just some ideas.
Ulf?
Yeah, I think you guys covered most of it, really. But games, there's a lot of since there's so much aesthetics in games, you can see games as an art form or something like that. But if you want to run a company, of course, then you got to sell titles, right? So marketing is super important. To me, I think it's always sort of looked past. In our team, we have 1 of our 8 guys is a marketing guy. So when I put my team together, 1 of 8 is marketing, and 1 of 8 is economics. So it's only 6 guys actually producing, you could say, the actual content of the game. But a big part of the whole thing is marketing it, making sure that everybody has is satisfied with their life and they can pay rent and everything, So it is a sort of a missed job usually, because you have programmers and artists and game designers and animators, but like that marketing piece is really important. And I think especially indies have to sort of realize that quicker, because publishers do a big, great job in marketing, and they know all the ins and outs of that. I'm not promoting everybody should get to
Hire a marketing guy.
Well, hire a marketing guy, because that'd be crazy, right? But at the same time, you gotta, like you were touching, you gotta think about how to market your game, incorporate it into the design. My big problem is I do a lot of psychology-based game design, right? So I want to touch certain buttons in your head, basically, to make you feel things or behave in a certain fashion. So when that works, it's good and fine. But how do I get people to play it? So I got to sort of wrap that sort of base mechanic in a shell that sort of is marketable, you could say, which sounds super cold, but there's of course on top of that a lot of aesthetics and cool stuff you want to do and so forth. But marketing is definitely a big part of success.
I have one piece of boring advice that doesn't apply, or that applies to anything that you're trying to market, which is no one actually knows what you're making and no one knows what your game or whatever it is. And again, it feels gross, but if you're on Twitter, tweet about it all the time, put images up all the time, just spam the heck out of people, because especially on social media, that stuff is filtered against you to have it actually go out to places, and people only check every few minutes anyway, so just be a shameless jerk about telling people what you're working on at all times. Just because Facebook even gives you the metrics if you try to if you put a post up, it says this reached 1% of the possible audience, and then they're pay more, and they just post all the time, just put stuff up all the time. People who are interested are going to eat it up, the fact that you're posting all the time, and people who don't know about you yet will just be a drive-by who catches the 1 out of what seems like 4,000 things that you're putting on the internet. So just never shut up.
And I would say, define what success means to you, right? If you're a large AAA developer, maybe success means 10x return on their investment, right? But for a small indie, maybe 2x is massive, success for you. And so by doing that, you can kind of not feel the overwhelming pressure of what success really is to others, but it's for your business, for your game and your property, right? What does it mean to be able to make another game? What do you need? And I think for us, it's very much, we look at success, realistically, and we look at it and we say, well, here's how much, we believe the product should conceivably do, right? And then we try to hit those metrics. But it's, in a perfect world, we try to hit all those metrics. But that's how we do it.
The takeaway from this is apparently that small teams think about how to sell their game a lot. This is the longest answer that we've given to
Yeah, we think about it a lot.
But still, I would like to make one addition, and I think from really indie standpoint, with super small team, and if I would go back, what we would make different, I would say start devlogs really early on, and do really maybe weekly or so, as often as you can, and this is what
it's a
you
good
said.
way of picking up really dedicated people who know about your game way before it comes out. So then, just
and if they like a feature, they will tell others.
Yeah, exactly. People just start talking about it for you. And also that helps, I think, for press. If you post a lot of weird stuff to social media that is eye-catching in some way, or keep posting devlogs, people who will eventually cover your game when it's out a lot of them will know about it beforehand instead of being like, what's this?
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up with the water blog that you guys just posted. It's
Yeah,
like
we posted a
super
nice
cool.
water shader on our blog, and now people know about our game who didn't because we posted some water.
Yeah,
So it could be anything, you know?
it's stuff that didn't even make it in the trailer, but it looks
Yeah,
gorgeous.
we- yeah.
Like it's just been all over Twitter. It's awesome.
Another tip would be micro, just micro marketing. So do like really small numbers on the money side, and then collect the data. So to figure out where your market is, just do really, I'm talking as tiny as you can, and just watch the data, see what you get back, and figure out where you're hitting with your specific game, I'd say. Instead of like this, we're gonna do this push because there's this is where you're at. You don't know, you know. So.
It's very easy to spend a lot of money marketing. And,
Oh yeah, and
not
with no
get
results.
Yeah. All right, we got
Does
time for
anyone have a
maybe
question
one
to
more.
save us from the marketing conversation?
All right, one more.
I'm coming from a strong mobile side, so for us anything that has to do with ID validation usually means make a super prototype, send it out to people, and get KPIs. But a lot of times that you guys are working on are a lot harder, in my mind anyways, to prototype, to validate towards like, is this worth being a product in the end? So how do you go about that step, like going from idea to validation to actually say, okay, yes, we're going to spend all of our money into making this a reality?
I think I can talk for everybody, but we're crazy.
Yeah.
One key point. But it's like it's passion. It's believing in your thing, of course, and then be really thorough and plan everything and try to figure out beforehand, and then experience, of course, and then I spend a lot of time, for me at least, just playing other games and cutting them to pieces, and then trying to dissect every mechanic. So I would say you play Call of Duty, and then you look, if you're doing an FPS, I would just record like the recoil animation, and then into Premiere and just like scrub that, see what the perfect, like when does the shell casing exit, and where's the muzzle flash, and how's the timing, and just take notes of that and just upload, and spend tons of time on that. So you know where the quality is at, and how you make good stuff, basically. But then you have to be, again, crazy to sort of jump out and say, oh, I'm going to make this cool thing, and then everybody's going to love it. Because that's what you have to believe. At least you have to believe it to an extent where, okay, I spent this amount of money on it. I need to sell this amount. Because if it's your passion, it's also a case where you only need to sell enough to make it again, right? To keep it, because it's working in a team that you love, on a project that you like, because you will not like it like 75% in, you're like, oh my God, I hate this shit. But that's it's the journey that's the key. If you're looking at money, you're gonna fail. It has to be the quality of the thing and the passion of the thing. But then, of course, money is great too, but it sort of, to be able to bring the quality up, then be that passionate about it, money is like a sideline thing.
You have to think about the money a little bit.
And I was just going to say, from my perspective, there's no silver bullet, right? There's no one solution that says this will work and it's going to be a success. What we try to do, and we do often, is fail fast, right? We isolate a certain amount of time and resources, and we go, we're going to try something new and see if it's sticky, see if it's something that people gravitate to. And if they don't, right, extremely fast and just cutting it. And ultimately, our calls will never be 100% on mark, right? But what we hope is that over the course of a production, all of those little decisions, right, add up to something that ultimately is well received by the public.
Well, I can only speak for our case, so it doesn't apply to you, but we know that there are a lot of aspiring game developers out there, and our game is all about creating, and we know that many gamers out there are also love to create, and because every gamer has a little bit of a game developer in his soul, I guess, and so we just believe that it's going to work, and yeah, we're crazy.
Yeah.
You had something about money, right?
Oh no, I just said no. You
gotta
I mean,
think about
you do
money,
have to
too.
think about it. Obviously, you can't entirely live oblivious from that. No, what I was going to say is, I mean, for our games, which may be very specific to our games, both Firewatch and In the Valley of Gods are these single-player games that are things that you sort of go through them and experience them once, and so much of the experience is kind of based on the all singing, all dancing experience working. So at least for the specifics of our team, it ended up being a lot more about the trust that the team themselves had in their own gut check, and in everyone sort of sitting down and saying, okay, before we can even assess whether or not this is working, we're going to need to take these leaps that are way longer than we're comfortable with to even just get anything done, and then figure out how many of those do we get before we've run out of time. Like, how many bites at the apple do we get? And if it's like we aren't going to get enough, then even that early we just go, okay, well, this thing that we've decided is a big risk. What if we don't make it? Can we reimagine the game without that? And I mean, that's almost like, I'm sure that's a process that everyone has, but just with the team sizes as small as they are, and our content and our game being so one-off content based before it's even accessible, like our game loop we figured out, like I said, when we had the ultimate first-person shooter thing in the lines from the room. We're like, great, you can walk up and say something about it. Okay, great, now build an entire world and write an entire screenplay. So it ended up being a lot about trust and a lot of sort of like mentally talking through everything and then hoping that we were right, but giving ourselves just enough room to be wrong, like maybe one time or 1.5 times. And that number's accurate. We rewrote the entire final third of the game after we had our first big playtest of the entire thing. That was real. But I don't know. I think it's different if your game is really like mechanical loop forward, or if you're making an extremely content first game. I think that the way that you figure that out is ends up being really different.
Awesome. Well, we're out of time, so I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for coming. This has been awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having us.